And welcome back, everyone. Once again, we are kicking off the PCS 2022 Spring Split. I am still Pyrotechnics. He is still Clement, and we have gotten off of an opening game that I think went a way that was very much the opposite of many would expect. However, this time around, I think the expectations might be all over the place. But before we get into the match, I do want to take a brief moment to thank our sponsors. Once again, of course, you can see them down at the bottom of the screen. They are CTBC Bank and Caliber. Thank you for making the PCS Spring Split possible. Now, Clement, we've got a brand new team, and a team with a lot of brand new faces as well, between Frank Esports and Impunity. This seems like it could be anybody's matchup.
Yeah, this is, Frank is obviously a new organization coming in here, and I do like the name choice. If Edward can win Worlds, so can Frank. So yeah, it's a big, bold statement coming in, but that aside, this is a team that we have seen a lot of players, and I think the interesting ones are Kana, which has been sitting on the PSG bench for quite a while right now, and now being known as Pretender coming into this squad. If he does well, he could hopefully go back to PSG and take his spot away from Bay, so there is that sort of incentive for him to really perform here. And then on the other end, it really is Impunity staying and growing on the league. They have kept, in my consideration, their best player, Blaze, onto the roster and added a lot more firepower. So looking
firepower.
Yeah, looking at Frank, we do have Pretender, Kana that we just mentioned, Eminem and K2, no strangers right here. Eminem used to play on Hong Kong Attitude. Rest in peace, they're no longer with us. And then K2 moving from the AD carry position back to his support position in this duo.
Yeah, from the Berjaya Dragons, of course. They've also added Holo, former Boom Esports jungler who shared time last split with Alex. But if anything, Holo definitely proved himself quite a lot. A very good tank engage player. Definitely had his chance to shine on a handful of some more of those bruisery types of champions. I really liked what Holo brought to the league, and I'm excited to see what he does with this new squad. Rounding it out, of course, with Kurt, and seeing how he will do coming out of the Asian Cup scene. He's a player that's known for a little bit more of the carry champions, the Camille, the Gangplank. We're going to see what he's going to be able to do here with this squad. But as you mentioned, Pretender, riding the bench on PSG, getting a chance to really prove himself here. I was speaking a little bit to the PSG ownership, talking about, he's a long-term prospect. We want to see him grow. So it's absolutely not a problem to loan him out. Go ahead, Frank Esports, give him some free training. And it's, for Pretender, it's only upside here.
Yeah, I personally really want to thank Frank for cobbling this team together at the last minute and giving the PCS full experience of 10 teams here. So, let's see how this new team is going to do. In the meantime, Impunity Esports, a lot of names that you might have seen before. Taco actually played in the LMS as a substitute. Faith was previously known as Error and did play on BLG Junior. Again, another talent coming back from the LDL. Blaze and Krelix, as you have seen them in the previous splits, and Quiet, which is kind of the new addition here, a star player in the League of Legends School Championship, one of the best top laners they have there, and a very aggressive one with the Jace and the Camille. So we're going to see if he's going to have the same dynamic as previously Top King, which was one of my favorite players to watch from the Impunity squad. Can he match up to that same degree?
I actually think, unlike the last matchup, top lane is going to be a really important one to watch, right? Both of these players are new, coming in off of either collegiate or, more amateur cup scenes. They're both favoring a lot of those more carry-oriented champions, so should be a lot of high contest here as we get into the picks and bans. Let's go ahead and take a look, though. It does seem like Impunity have learned the lesson that J-Team did not. Zeri banned away, Caitlyn, of course, following through, and we do see the Thresh and Akali bans on the Frank Esports side. So a little bit more closer to what we would have expected coming into the start of today.
Yeah, and this is interesting from Impunity because if I'm looking at the sort of AD carry matchup, Impunity, they do like to give Blaze one of those stronger meta picks coming into the game. They're leaving a lot on the table. In the recent patches, we have seen Renekton and maybe Corki being banned all across the boards here. But both of them are still open in this draft, and it is going to be Eminem snagging down the Aphelios first. I think this is probably the best laning champion that we have in terms of the top 4 or 5 picks in the meta right now.
Yeah, it's also one of his most played champions if you look at last split as well, back when he was on Hong Kong Attitude. Rocking about 9 instances of that in the summer split. Definitely one of the ones that's carried over, a lot of the other champions we could have expected from him, maybe the Jhin Varus. This certainly has more prio, but it does leave the Jinx up and available, so Blaze will get a chance to lock that one in. So we now start to see the priority down bot, definitely giving Impunity a chance to grab something, and pairing it up with the Nautilus right off the bat. That does mean that Eminem's going to have a little bit of trouble if he wants to try and dodge not only the hooks, but the zaps as well.
Yeah, we do see this in the meta these days quite a lot. Usually Thresh is kind of the best support for both of these, but since Nautilus does counter Thresh a little bit with the hook mechanics, obviously you can't flay before the hook lands onto you. So the preemptive Nautilus has been very common coming into this. And we are going to see Frank here actually deviating from the sort of standard trade-off. They are going to go for the Leona instead. A little less synergistic with the Aphelios, does not provide him with an escape, but you can go forward with his composition.
Yeah, Holo also getting a chance to go on the Xin Zhao, another highly contested pickup. It does mean Taco has the Lee Sin instead. So champions that we saw a lot last year, certainly making a reappearance once more. Back into ban phase 2, we have the Vex removed for the second time today. Won't get to see that one on the Rift, not in the hands of Pretender especially. So we'll see how the mid lane starts to shake up as the bans start to focus that way. We already saw the Akali, the LeBlanc removed from Faith's champion pool. What else? And, well, it's going to be the Gwen. Up top, they focus on Quiet.
Really interesting that Corki is being left open right here. Usually with the LPL logic is if you have Jinx and Corki, you kind of won the game already. It's just a very strong poke composition. You have auto attacks from 725 range. You get a couple of missile barrages in, and suddenly the enemy is half HP and you can just kind of take over. So we'll see if yeah, potentially Frank could ban that away, especially if the Syndra is being taken off the table as well. A very strong counter pick into that. So they're going to take away the Twisted Fate. So leaving Impunity with a very strong options here.
Yeah, Impunity definitely has a chance to get out to a flying start for sure. We'll see if they go ahead and take the Corki. I think it makes the most sense given how much the pool has kind of been dredged a bit, but they do want to focus on that top side. This is actually a blind pick here if they do lock it for Quiet. The Camille, one of the champions he really prefers, both him and Kurt. They will lock this in. It gives a fair amount of mobility here. And what will Frank answer with this? They have to round out their composition.
This is very non-standard to blind pick your top laner right here, especially Camille, that isn't even really considered a top-tier F pick. So I'm a little bit confused here. Maybe they are that confident in Quiet's Camille to pick it, but I don't think this is exactly going with the meta trends. On the other side, we do have Frank going for potentially the top lane Victor that we have seen a little bit in solo queue. And
yeah, it's a chance.
Yeah, it could just be mid. They have been dancing around the idea of Captain. That would be a sort of semi-counter to Corki to kind of scale on. But they do settle with the Gragas top lane. Very safe pick. We have seen a lot of Turbo Chem Tank. Gragas is here. And just with the Victor. So very standard build from Frank.
Rounding it out too, it looks like Impunity playing around with the idea of doing something very different from the Corki. Instead, the Rise gets locked in to finish things out for Faith. So looking at it down the line, it seems like, yeah, Frank have a pretty solid front to back. They've got a nice front line between K2 and Kurt here. Holo can also get up into the front, and then Victor is going to be the one that's going to be protected and trying to dish out all the damage. Eminem's, of course, Aphelios later on in the game as well. And looking at the Impunity lineup, yeah, a little bit interesting that they put so much heavy prio on Quiet's comfort pick of Camille.
Yeah, very interesting sort of draft coming out from both sides. On the surface, they look very similar. They're engaged compositions with hypercarry ADCs, but I think the real difference does come in the side lane control that Impunity does have. Rise right now does build almost kind of full tank with the Filmbur Winter coming in as his item of choice. He's basically the only one that kind of uses this new item, and he can't do a lot in the side lanes. He can't push for your team. The same goes for as Camille. While on the other side, I think Frank does come out slightly ahead in terms of the 5v5 scenarios right here. So very similar, but a little bit nuanced differences in their preference for side laning and their preference for full-on front-to-back team fighting.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see in particular how Frank plays well together, because as you pointed out, this was a team that really did get thrown together at the last minute. Of course, their mid laner on loan from PSG and the rest of the roster just kind of rounded out. It happened, so close to the start of the split that our announcement didn't even have them up there. It was just a TBA, and they are all together. They are assembled. We talked about J-Team Avengers. Well, these are the last second Avengers, it would appear. Let's see if they can take it to the established squad with a lot of new faces. Impunity Esports here to start things off. A lot of question marks, a lot of unknowns, a lot honestly of uncertainty where these two teams are going to shake it out. I think if anything, Frank has the possibility to be a dark horse squad in this league. I wonder if Impunity can lay that same claim after a very disappointing summer split that saw them falling to 9th place, blowing up their roster but for the bot side, and rounding it all out here.
It's going to be super interesting for both of these teams. For me, as you mentioned, Frank probably has one of the highest ceilings out of the top four. And, you know, just kind of talk about how the league is structured. I do think the top four are going to be your Beyond Gaming, your PSG, and your J Team. These three squads haven't really changed all that much. And then your Avenger squadron of the Flying Oysters coming in. That kind of rounds out everybody's top four list. But Frank is that sort of dark horse because they do have a very experienced bot lane duo in M&M and K2 coming in here. And their top laner, you know, is definitely no slouch, as we have seen in the Asian Esports Cup. No competitive experience, but I think with the veterans besides him, he can pick up a lot of experience in a short time. And then you have a player from PSG. So, you know, on paper, a new squad, but definitely a lot of experience shared between all its members.
Yeah, gathering them all together to try and get something that's even greater than the sum of its parts. By contrast, right, Impunity, a lot of new players on their roster as well. But as you pointed out, the bot lane, you know, has experience together. They also have kept some other aspects of it that's on the bench right now. Bareku comes to mind. But Krelix and Blaze, they did play together a little bit in the summer. There were a lot of swaps happening. You know, we saw Smurf coming in a few times, Bareku as well. But this is a team that also can boast players that have come with a bit of a pedigree themselves, right? I mean, Faith in their mid lane, he's come off of Billy Jr., kind of a little bit of a developmental squad over there in the LPL, and has kind of been around for a while. So we'll have to see if he can get this team off to a rolling start. Definitely on the comfort when it comes to roaming champions, right? We used to see a lot of Galio. We used to see like Zoe. We used to see Yasuo coming through. The Rise is kind of in that same mold while being more of a mage champion. So I'm curious to see how well Impunity can deliver. I am questioning a little bit how much they put priority on a comfort pick champion for Quiet. Although, you know, Camille can still be strong. You can still get a lot done with her. It does seem like they are focusing on playing to the individual player strengths rather than, hey, this is what's the meta right now, or this is what's the safest for a new player that doesn't have that level of competitive experience. We'll find out which of those two wagers ends up being the one that pays off as Frank Esports take on Impunity in our second match of the day here as we kick off the spring split of the 2022 PCS.
And on to the Rift we go. 5-point spreads for both of these teams. We're going to be taking a look at the runes here, and this is quite interesting coming out from the side of Camille in the top lane. We do see a Grasp Camille. So a very tanky front line that we're witnessing right here between the basically main tank Rise and the Camille going into this matchup here. Camille's a very interesting champion. We have seen her picked in the LPL specifically, but it usually is as a combo piece alongside with the Galio mid lane. Very rarely do we see the blind Camille's anymore, so it's either player preference or there is some other nuance to the strategy. As we see a short trade being taken here, with Impunity, I have to say, coming out a little bit worse, as we do have Blaze being the one taking the damage.
Yep, Blaze. It's always a little bit rough as a Jinx, right? Like, this is a champion that just has such a swingy amount of momentum. You can roll off to a flying start with a get excited. You can stack kills left, right, and center and start taking out everybody, doing a lot of damage. But at the same time, you're also squishy, and you can see Blaze respecting the amount of lockdown that this Frank Esports side has in his summoner spell choice. The cleanse comes out instead of a heal.
Yeah, definitely doesn't want to get targeted coming in by, you know, the Gragas, all the die potential, and especially the Leona is the one that we're really looking at. So it's going to try to stay safe in lane, and this is kind of how Impunity has played in previous splits. Even though, in my opinion, Blaze has been their best player, he doesn't actually get a lot of attention in the laning phase itself. He actually has one of the worst laning stats if you're looking at Summer Split, as we see Faith flashing in.
Looking for Pretender right now. They do find a little bit of damage, but he is able to make his escape, make good by use of that flash. Actually trades it with Faith as well. So all said and done, yeah, I think Frank come out a little ahead up there, even manages to hit him with the emote.
Yeah, in terms of the flash trade, I actually favor Impunity just a little bit because of the wave position. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Pretender to keep himself safe. But on the meantime, they do have the superior early game jungle in the Xin Zhao, as we see Holo being spotted down here.
Yeah, Taco was kind of waiting in the wings as well, but not full on his health bar after that clear, so not certain he really wanted to take that, make it a 3v3. A lot of action being sniffed for down to the bottom, but of course, full summoner spells does mean it's going to be a little tough. Faith actually running in. Oh, Taco actually manages to peg him there with the shots of the Q, and Krelix is the one that takes a lot more. He goes back in and ends up dying to the Ignite of K2. All of a sudden, Impunity, regretting the decisions they've made here, is Faith getting caught out, flash on the route, goes forward, locked down for days, and M&M with the kill. Frank Esports are making a statement here, Clement, in their first game.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate for Impunity. They did get the initial collapse, but the walk back from Krelix was just a bit of a head scratcher. He ends up going down there, first blood over to Aphelios, and that really is the least member you want to see grab that 400 gold.
Mm-hmm. You can really tell K2 used to be an AD carry because he's really got the killer instinct. No, I want to get that kill, and I will. Sorry, M&M, you're going to have to share this game. Secures it with the Ignite. Well done.
Yeah, that definitely was a painful exchange. I actually felt like Impunity had some very good setups coming into this one. Before Pretender really gets his Hex Core upgraded, you are going to see Ryze actually having a bit of a push edge in his lane, but after that trade and after Faith goes down, I don't think that's going to be the case. M&M very comfortable to just 1v2 this.
Yeah, this is not what you want to see if you are running a Jinx lane. Again, I talked about how the momentum can be swinging. If you fall behind like this, you're going to be in trouble. And you can already see it's about a 10 goal or 10 CS difference, I should say. It's going to get evened up as the tower wave gets shoved, but still, Impunity might be locked up for a little while. This opens up K2 to start roaming around the map, getting some vision down early, and that could trap Taco, which can cut the legs off of a lot of potential ganks here.
Yeah, we are just going to see Frank, I think, double down on this bot lane over and over again. M&M already has the shove naturally in the Aphelios versus the Jinx matchup, and now he also has the extra flash against No Sums Jinx. So at this point, Impunity just have to take it. They can't really push out of their own lane. The pressure from Xin Zhao versus the Lee Sin matchup is going to be tremendous as well. So I feel like Impunity are kind of relegated to playing a bit more of a safe game plan for the next couple of minutes.
They're going to have Krelix sniffing around mid to see if he could find something. But, Pretender's playing very safe on this one. When you play a champion like Victor, you don't want to get locked down, especially no flash right now. So hangs on to that one. And Impunity actually just going on a roaming spree. Going to take that blast going over and try for a dive here at level 4 and 5. I don't know if K2 and M&M see this one coming, but they certainly do now. Dragon Strike out. No, that's nothing. They could not even touch them.
Yeah, that was a beautiful move from Impunity. I really love the idea. You can't contest 2v2 in the bot side, so we're going to send our support, push mid in, give us that roam opportunity. I think it was very well choreographed, but unfortunately, as we were talking about, Frank Esports do have that experience. M&M, they've been around forever behind Kai Wing on the Hong Kong attitude, so they definitely understand that that was a possibility, played it super safe, and, it ends up just costing Krelix a little bit of experience.
Yeah, Krelix continues to fall a little behind here. While Blaze has been able to at least close that CS gap just a little bit, it's definitely looking a little rough for Impunity to kick things off. The gold game isn't massively out of control or anything just yet, but we're early on. This does open up an opportunity. Tempo over to Frank Esports as they go ahead and start on this Mountain Drake between M&M, K2, and Holo. Pretender even guarding here, and there's not a lot Impunity can do.
Yeah, like we said, no summoners coming in from the bot lane. It pretty much just means that they have to play defensively for the next couple of minutes. Frank Esports taking full advantage of that. But we do have to mention that Impunity, as we have seen, they still have very good comeback mechanics. I think people are sort of underestimating the power of Camille late game. She's not seen as much in this meta anymore. With the rise of champions like, honestly, like Jax, and with Jace and Action kind of taking the headlines of top lane bullies, you don't really see this champion as much, but I'll be honest, in the PCS, I don't think there are going to be that many top laners that are going to be piloting Jace or Action, so maybe Camille could still be a champion that retains her popularity.
Yeah, at the very least, it's a comfort pickup for Quiet here, but as you pointed out, there's a lot of utility, there's a lot of opportunity to close gaps to lockdown. I mean, that Hextech Ultimatum, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like compared to those champions you listed, Clement, yeah, she's not as flashy. But when Camille came out, I mean, it was all razzle-dazzle. So there is a lot of opportunity here, and there are a lot of juicy targets on the side of Frank Esports. I'm definitely looking at Pretender. I'm looking at Eminem right now. Those are priorities for Quiet to dive into the backline and make the play. There's a lot of ways that his team can follow him as well. If you look at the likes of Faith on the party portal can come in. Blaze obviously has to stay a little bit safe, but Taco and Krelix can both go into the front. So, it does play to the strengths of the team comp. There's a lot of front to back. There's a lot of engage on the side of Impunity. And yeah, unlike last game, a lot of comeback mechanics for the team that's currently falling behind. Taco going to go ahead and try to clear out Tri-Brush on this ward. And they're also bringing Faith into this one. He does have access to his ultimate, but this is well telegraphed right now. Pretender pinging way ahead of time. That opens up the avenue for this Rift Herald to be taken by Holo.
This is just lovely play coming in from Eminem and K2. They're not falling for any of the traps right here, sniffing all of the 4v2s right away, and Holo, just pulling people across the map on the other side as well. But we do see Impunity with a very adventurous move. They know they have Frank Esports shoved in on the bottom side, so they're just going to move everyone towards the top side and take the Herald. And I have to say, this has been kind of the go-to move of this meta. Everyone sort of agrees that because the teleport flank doesn't exist, your first Herald push is extremely deadly.
Definitely starts to swing the gold pretty heavily. So taking advantage of the moment away, Eminem is going to be able to at least get down one tower plate, but big swing there on Impunity's side to be able to grab that away, as there just wasn't enough power to secure it fast on the Frank Esports side. So despite being a little down, they managed to muscle in.
Yeah, I'm very impressed so far by by Impunity's movements across the map. They're very purposeful. They have gotten them slight advantages here and there. And now the question really is, where is this Herald going to go down? Personally, I do think it's probably best to just drop it mid lane, where you are going to see potentially an opening up of the map that way, or because I think the bot lane, the push control is less in Impunity's control, so it most likely will just be going mid.
Ooh, look at this. Franker trying to set up a little bit of a death brush there. Not going to happen just yet. That's okay. Krelix, he comes around a little bit later anyways, but you can see they're getting antsy to try and make a play on the Frank Esports side here. Pretender will be able to clear this, and good gravity field down. And the Chaos Storm. Faith wants to chase this, but I don't know if that's a good idea. He ran straight into the trap, as Pretender is going to be able to clean him up with the help of his friends.
Yeah, that was extremely forced and somewhat telegraphed here. A couple things to note on the map. Frank Esports definitely knew that this play was coming. They had a great pink ward on the side of Impunity, spotted out Taco, and knew they was in the area. And I just have to say, that felt like an overforce from Faith, as K2 is trying to get more on the map.
Yeah, Blaze is going to be able to turn this a little bit here. Actually, doesn't quite land enough damage. The Flame Choppers weren't well positioned for the chase down. So K2 does get away by burning pretty much everything there. And Blaze would have loved to pick that up, to get excited. It really does mean all the difference to a Jinx.
Yeah, that was a little bit unfortunate for Impunity. I think the bot lane did have to pay for the sins of the mid. As Faith, honestly, not really the best acting from Pretender, but still gets Faith to
Sinner
bite
champs
anyway.
And there's Sinner mid laners, aren't there?
Yeah, that's a little unfortunate. There's nothing you can do if you're Blaze and the enemy just starts walking underneath your tower that way because your mid lane's shut in. So no, he has to back off, and Impunity do find themselves even further in that sort of a hole here, and they do have to think about where they want to drop that Herald. Faith has already died twice. They don't have bot lane control, so maybe they have to find a pick before they can utilize this Herald.
It does seem like the play is tending towards the mid. They really want to get Pretender, as they do manage to get the kickback and take him down. A nice 1-2-3 punch as Taco tanks up the shot there on the tower, and they will be able to secure this with the Rift Herald on the back. Frank, unfortunately, can't get much else except the Infernal Drake, but they will be able to secure it. So all that attention paid to the PSG mid lane on loan has paid off in the form of a single kill.
That's actually quite worthwhile. They also get 2 plates from that one. So,
they do.
In total, we already have 480 gold coming out of that mid lane tower towards the side of Impunity. They kind of diffuse the situation, and, Quiet also gets a little bit further ahead. So, I think all in all, that was pretty well choreographed. And once again, it was a good reaction to how far Frank Esports were pushing in the mid. You know, I've actually, like, even though not all of the plays have worked out on an individual level from Impunity, I've actually been very impressed with the amount of coordination that they've been showing across the map.
Yeah, especially when you compare what the form looked like last split, right? I mean, Impunity was one of those teams where we had so many of these head scratch moments that, you know, it was small wonder they ended up kind of falling apart at the end. A lot of player swaps and just didn't seem to find answers. It is very encouraging that this new squad that they've assembled with some old faces has played together as well as it has. Sure, they're a little bit behind, but yeah, making some good plays, managing to take out Pretender there, that's good. The plates off the turret as well. And they've stabilized, importantly. They're only down about 1,000 gold and some change. The Dragons, of course, also count, but that's still well within the grasp of turning things in their favor.
For sure, and what I mean by, I feel like if you think about the mistakes that have happened this game, they're all reside on the individual level. They're relatively easy mistakes to sort of fix. You know, Krelix, don't go back. Faith, he's totally acting. Don't fall for that. Don't give him an Oscar, and you're fine. The rest of the map movements, I've actually been really enjoying from Impunity side so far. But once again, Frank Esports sitting on that extra mythic coming in from M&M is going to have right of way in the bot lane. Getting one more turret fighting and an extra Drake.
Yeah, Taco's going to come here to the rescue to try and stop this. He does send out the Sonic Wave, and that may be just enough. The Aphelios ult comes through, doesn't quite finish off Blaze, but, you know, we talked about how well M&M and K2 had been playing defensively in the early attempts at 4v2s. This time it was the turntables, as Blaze played it a little bit to the edge, but manages to get away, as well as Krelix. A little help from Taco as well, and finally able to complete his mythic item. The Kraken Slayer comes through to try and bust through some of that tanky front line.
Yeah, that was another heartbreaking play coming in for Impunity. We just saw M&M holding onto Flash and Gale Force. He was definitely within kill range of that Jinx, but, you know, didn't pull the trigger, played it slow, got the tower regardless. And the question really here is, where is M&M and K2 going to go next onto the map? They could shut down another lane and deny a lot of farm by just pushing it in constantly.
They absolutely could. Impunity going to try and focus their efforts. It looks like right now in the mid, as they've swapped their duo lane over there to try and finish what the Rift Herald started. Quiet, of course, keeping Kurt pushed in a little bit as well, just dead even on the farm game between those two. And you can see as the goal difference has kind of started to dip a little bit more in the favor of Impunity. Still at a deficit, but they have stabilized well into this mid-game. So this is still really anybody's match.
And we do see Frank Esports being pulled towards mid lane as well, sending both Aphelios and Leona there. Just in time for the Herald too. So, you know, good map allocation coming in from Frank. And I don't think Impunity can really contest this here. It is post 14-minute mark, so Faith could potentially teleport towards the top lane, but it doesn't look like it. Quiet is also going back. So it just looks like Frank is going to take another objective uncontested and also deny the push that Blaze and Krelix, which they did have priority going towards mid, tried to set up and get.
Yeah, this is, you know, it's just those little advantages that start to compound over time. You got to be careful how many you allow to be given away. A little bit of damage is dealt to that turret in the bottom, but unfortunately, I think that's going to be pretty much negated by what happens here. Hollow and M&M leading the charge, and Shelly right at their back. There's not a lot Blaze and Krelix can do. K2 is even here as well, and that is just, honestly, about the freest mid lane take they could have gotten. You do see Taco coming around the side, but I don't know if it's worth it setting this play up. Even Pretenders here, they're going to get 2 for 1.
That's still 2 for nothing right now, and Ryze is not a champion that pushes particularly fast. They finally do get the tower bot lane, but I've got to say that was not a worthwhile trade. I feel like Taco was actually out of position for that play. You know, no real pressure in the 2v4 mid lane. Taco, they don't get the dive on the bot lane either. Pretender just walks straight mid, and I think if you're Frank Esports, you're very, very happy with that trade.
Yeah, I feel like what you mentioned about Taco has kind of been the story of his game so far. He's always kind of a pixel late and a couple of gold pieces short. He's just not really where he needs to be. We've seen him sniffing occasionally for a play with, you know, a little bit of a Sonic Wave. He will start to set up a Ocean Dragon here, but of course they don't have the most damage between him and Krelix. They may not even be able to secure it in time. I think they will, but yeah, this the impact of the jungles hasn't been quite as much in the lanes as I think either team would have hoped, but definitely less for Taco. Hollow has been able to do a little bit more with what he's got to work with. And we've already seen him kind of prove his capability in that sense in previous PCS splits.
And I do want to mention, even though Taco has played in the LMS before, he was a substitute player. So this is his real debut coming up into the PCS here, and a first chance we get to see him play finally in the competitive scene. I think this Drake has been very well leveraged on the side of Frank Esports. Nobody coming towards the top lane, so Drake for tower gold early on. I do have to give the advantage once more to Frank. I feel like they have read the play very correctly, and once again, I think it is just kind of the experience factor coming in from these players.
Yeah, I think you're right. Altogether, they are really working quite well. And again, all the more impressive knowing that they haven't had that much time to really get together and get on the same page. But they're off to a great start here. You can see the atomization that's been coming through for them means that they should be feeling relatively confident if they get into a spot of bother. At the moment, they're just playing so well on the positioning. Eminem and K2 have been covered quite well. And, you really got to love what these two have been able to bring out, staying safe when they need to, knowing when and how to go aggressive. I really love what K2's been doing on this Leona. Again, former AD carry player, I'm sure he loves the fact that he can just walk into an enemy team when he needs to and not have to worry about insta-dying. Of course, has his support experience too. He's obviously not a fresh face to this particular role.
Yeah, he definitely has played in both of the bot lane roles before. We do see Impunity still trying to claw themselves back here. I do want to mention for their composition, they have great chase down potential. You do have hard crowd control from the Camille and Rise, and neither of those abilities require an ultimate. So once you finish off a target, it's just open season. You can chase the entire enemy team across the map. Frank Esports still has to play very, very safe when they're walking outside of their lanes, and so far they are doing that. They're not moving into their jungle without at least 2 members to escort K2 around the place, and they're just not giving any opportunities to Impunity. I've honestly been enjoying Impunity's map movement so far, but Frank has been able to one-up them just by being in the right place and being there for the objectives.
Absolutely. Really, it is kind of a delicate dance between these two squads, right? You talked about how safe Frank have to be, but they've managed to really ace that exam right now. 20 minutes in, they've given few, if any, openings to Impunity, who only have that 1 kill on the collapse on a Pretender, and that's about all they've been able to secure to their name. It is a low-kill game overall, a lot more about the trade of objectives, the movement. Taco and Faith looking to set up a trap up top. The problem is there's nobody anywhere near there, so they're just spending time and hoping. So instead, they opt to just start pushing out the wave a little bit, and it does seem like the game slows down a little bit at this point, Clement, especially with the Dragon momentum cut just a little bit by Impunity.
Yeah, we are going to have, I believe,
Pretender
Drake here. Ooh,
that's the kickback. Excellent insec on this one, and it doesn't matter if Pretender has the damage through the Chaos Storm. They're able to get it done between Faith and Taco, now 2 for 2 on taking down Pretender as he was isolated up top. Didn't have a whole lot of help there, and at least they've got their sights set on the victor.
Yeah, another kill going over there, and we do see Faith with 2 now. Started 0-2, but starting to claw some back. I will say, though, Pretender, even though he did go down, this did expend quite a bit from Impunity, and he was able to clear the wave. So it's just purely the kill and assist gold going over to Impunity. Unfortunately for them, aren't able to get any of the objectives or objective bounties back there. Well, there aren't any bounties right now still, but, it's just a single kill in the side lane. And honestly, I don't even think Frank Esports lost that much. Still able to use that opportunity while they saw the 3-man in top lane to get a lot of deep vision around the Baron.
That's true. Quiet could be in a little bit of trouble here as K2 is looking to come around the side to collapse on him, but the thing about Camille is she's got a hook shot. You can get out of danger pretty easily there. So Quiet, becoming quietly a threat on this side lane as, past the Divine Sunderer, we already see the Tiamat coming through, should be able to see Hydras and things after a little while, and giving him the opportunity to just keep that pressure. And it has been such an objective-focused game. Sometimes the objective is kill Victor, but apart from that, they're doing a pretty bang-up job at just keeping it all about these objectives on the rip.
Really good trading coming in from Quiet in the bottom lane as well, as he does take a couple of turret shots to kind of erase whatever I just said there.
Suboptimal. Caster curses happen, we know.
Yeah, meanwhile in the top lane, a bit of a scuffle here as well. I think Frank are finally going to give up their top lane after all of that shoving power. And I do sense that the tides are sort of shifting right here, as we do have Frank Esports with a composition that doesn't have the best of engages here. They'll either have to rely on Kurt, who is a complete amateur in terms of coming into the competitive scene, or they have to have Leona just go really crazy and try to find that lockdown. But so far, with M&M having that item lead, they haven't been able to actually get anything. And this Drake is, in my book, not exactly worth it. You know, I think Impunity are pretty happy trading away an inner tower, especially with that increased gold gain in this season.
Yeah, they've actually just about equalized the gold all on itself, and Impunity, yeah, definitely getting the edge in terms of what objectives they were securing. Sometimes, you know, the dragon stuff is a little bit RNG. We got to recognize your game plan has to shift if it's not the one you really need, as they just secure an ocean in exchange for that inner tower. So Impunity opens up so much more of the map here. They haven't knocked down the mid, so, you know, for Frank Esports, it's kind of an interesting layout in how much map control they really have at the moment. The key difference here is Frank just have so much more vision control around this Baron pit. However, let's see if Impunity can handle that. Right now, Quiet actually just trying to take it here to Kurt. Trade's just about even, doesn't spend an ultimate either. So it looks like it's just going to be wash, rinse, repeat as the wave gets cut a little bit. In fact, they are actually bringing Faith to the party, and the rest of Impunity, they might be in a little bit of trouble here as Krelix gets caught out, does pop the stopwatch, and flashes away to deny the engage. As they continue to move on the bottom side and just chew through towers, Faith and Quiet will be able to polish this one off. Meanwhile, Baron's already started.
Really nice move coming in from Impunity. It's the double TP gank to the bot lane into a potential just double TP up again to defend on this Baron. I feel like Frank are putting themselves in a super dangerous position, but Impunity are not defending Baron. They're actually just gonna go for the inhibitor.
Yeah, they get the knock up here. It's getting very low. Taco is sniffing for the steal if he can, trying to stay hidden in that tri-brush. The Jinx rocket comes through, and here he goes!
Taco
doesn't manage to get it, but you know what? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and that is going to be the Frank Esports Baron secure in exchange for a whole lot of towers down bottom.
That was... I don't think that was worth it for Impunity. They do get one tower in the bottom lane, but because they're not defending Baron, I think they throw away the majority of their side lane advantages. We were talking about Impunity during the ban pick, that they do have that 1-3-1 edge with the Camille and with the Rise, but now that the enemy team has Baron, that's no longer the case.
Well, most of the enemy team has Baron. I was about to say K2, though, just managed to stay alive through it all. The Chaos Storm and all that damage dished out by M&M's multiple guns does mean that Blaze has to cleanse and just run away. You know, getting killed a lot is a bummer in any situation. When you are an 80 carrier like Jinx and you are starved of kills, that's, I feel like, the ultimate feels bad, man. He is trying so hard to get excited, but he just can't do it.
Yeah, he really needs the other side laners to be there for that to happen. I think that's how the composition is supposed to work. You chain CC, pick off one target with the... Oh, that's just sad.
That's also feels so bad, man. Pretenders like, thanks for the leash, bro.
I'm not exactly sure why he was keeping the Krugs alive. Yeah. That was a little bit baffling. I'm not sure what he was trying to accomplish by holding on right there, but he just gave the Gromp over.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, maybe not the biggest deal, but like, yeah, definitely a little bit of confusion there happening. Meanwhile, you can see Holo and K2 in the roaming duo really working their way to get through this jungle, clear through the wards, do what they can. Blaze is just having a hard time trying to push from a safe distance where and when he can. Meanwhile, it's all about that side lane if you're Quiet. Kurt's kind of just been locked into like this, it's not a nightmare scenario, but it's kind of like a bit of a Groundhog Day thing. It's like, okay, I guess I'm just stuck living on a side lane trying to stop the inevitable onslaught of this Camille that's just going to outpush me constantly.
Yeah, he will lose a bunch of CS gradually over time, but I don't think he's that worried because he does have that Baron buff, and this is why I don't really like the trade for Impunity. I felt like if they didn't do the trade and just continue to scale with Rise and Camille, they would have been in a much better position. I felt like if they just waited out the potential for a 4 Drake team fight or for a Baron trade, then the map would be theirs. They would have a lot more agency, but they opted for this Baron push, and you know that really dampens whatever Camille can do in the side lane, especially when Gragas is present, and it also gives Frank a lot of pushing potential into the mid as well.
Yeah. Of course, the issue for Frank, as you mentioned, is it's hard for them to really find a good angle to fully engage. Instead, they have to hope that they get a catch off on some of their CC. Low enough cooldowns for the likes of K2 and even Pretender, but they haven't really been able to find that big opening, and I think that really speaks volumes about why we have such a low kill game comparatively. However, Frank Esports, they are going to try and force the issue here, looking to secure the Ocean Soul, and Impunity, they want to make it a 5v5. We've got an honest-to-goodness fight. However, will it be over before it begins? You can see Faith caught him in the back. However, the collapse is coming through. It's time for Impunity to shine as they look for more. But do they have the damage? An absolute bloodbath here as Hollow holds the line quiet, though, dishing out the deeps in the back. Hollow is isolated from the team, and it ends up being all Impunity as Kurt flashes into the Dragon Pit and absolutely nowhere to go. He's bought himself an express ticket back to the fountain.
Taco does not disappoint on his debut. He's been waiting for this moment for over 3 years to finally shine in the Premier League of Southeast Asia, and he's done it in his debut. A beautiful Dragon's Rage to kick back Eminem. Eminem had the flash, was not able to use it, and Blaze is there with open arms and a Gatling gun to wait for Eminem to fall into his lap. They kill the Aphelios right off the bat, and that's a 5v4 where they have a great cleanup crew of the Camille and the Rise with the crowd control. That was just beautiful team fighting from Impunity, and with one stroke, they are back in the match.
Yeah, unfortunately, they lose a few on the back out. Overstaying does happen, but they still get the inhibitor for it. They wipe off what was left of the Baron buff, and it's just like you're saying, Clement. The mistakes were individual, not on a team fight basis. When they were all together, they got the job done. Definitely props to Taco for executing where he needed to. The priority target onto Eminem. Of course, the cleanup crew coming through. Still only one kill for Blaze, but it's enough to buy him his Infinity Edge, and he will be a happy camper for a little bit here. So now it's kind of all up in the air. The gold lead's on Impunity. They've got the Dragon to top it off. Frank still have, some power for themselves, but it's the engage was a little bit scuffed, and they couldn't protect Eminem properly. I mean, he didn't even get a chance to use his summoners. Well, really wasn't going to do much for him, even, to be honest.
It's really hard to kind of match the flash with the Lee Sin in that sort of scenario. You kind of have to predict whether he's going to go a little bit further with the war jump or not. And in that moment, Taco just kind of wins the coin flip and gets the teamfight win for his team. And right now, I think Impunity, what they should do is just try to play this slow. They have this Camille that is already 30 CS up on the Gragas. They can definitely drag this out a little bit more. Taco?
Oh, boy. Okay. Taco, you praise him, he giveth, he taketh away, but will he get away? That's the question. Seems like the answer is yes. Maybe you shouldn't be backing in that brush, my dude.
Not so sure.
Yeah, he is just going to go down in a blaze of glory, it seems, right now. Ooh. On a wild goose chase, he's leading the rest of Frank Esports as Kurt tries to get the damage off onto him, and he tries to stay alive through all of this. Safeguards on, but Pretenders to the rescue, and they will just feed the kill right over to the victor, as Pretender will get one, but Impunity going to try and take advantage of the lapse at the moment on the map. They get the Baron down to half health, but they will go for the turn, immediately getting the root down onto Hollow, the kickback once again, but he's so tanky, and look at the turn from Frank Esports. Hollow manages to claim the kill credit, teleport comes through, they don't have enough left in the tank, the barrel pops both Quiet and everyone away from Blaze, as they haven't finished. They managed to get them away, and what a bizarre turn of events it's just been in the last minute.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I feel like Impunity should have been wiped right there, but a couple things did go wrong on the side of Frank. That was a very, very timid teleport coming in from Pretender. He took the long way around, gathered with his team before going into that one. And for Impunity, it was very close to disaster, but Faith does manage to get out with the Realm Warp. So overall, I feel like, Impunity got pretty lucky off the mistake of Taco. Taco trying to do the Taco giveth away. But his team kind of reins it in, and in the end, all mistakes are forgiven. Okay, maybe not. The Baron still goes over to Frank.
I mean, it's so weird to think about how it just was a.
It could have been a lot worse.
Swinging back and forth. Yeah, yeah. It's the Baron is an unfortunate situation for Impunity. But it's crazy that Impunity almost managed to grab it for themselves. They turn the fight. Let's just break this down again, because it starts by Quiet kind of giving away the game as he runs towards this. The teleport, as you mentioned, a little timid here for Pretender. And Hollow is caught. But look at how tanky he is in the Crescent Guard. It doesn't matter.
doesn't really go down here, and you have to go into the guard to really challenge the Xin Zhao. This was a super risky play by Impunity to turn back into a 4v5. So I was really questioning that play. I mean, both Kurt and Pretender did have their teleports up, so the turn back seemed very, very opportunistic. It fails spectacularly as Xin Zhao doesn't die and he even gets a kill back. So I honestly have to say Impunity got very, very lucky, only losing one member with the amount of risk that they took. But unfortunately, Frank Esports still come out with a massive lead, and now we are in a split push base race situation.
Yeah, Quiet's going to have to do quite a lot, and he actually backs away, teleporting in, but the fight is already on the other front right now. You can see Krellick stunned up, Payton going a little bit too deep here as he gets the Eclipse off, but into the back is Quiet. They've got him in a pincer, but do they have the damage to finish him off? Faith, even though he's a tanky Rise, he's getting shredded through here. Kurt's going to drop as well. It is an absolute bloodbath in this base, left and right. Blaze, though, ooh, Rockets coming through, the double kill for Eminem, but he evaporates, and the push is cut short. What a ridiculous series of events. Again, they don't want to let him get away, but with the empowered recall, they don't have much choice.
Oh, that was so close coming in from Imp. I believe he did get a crit to finish off Eminem right there. If he didn't find that hit, it could have been GG potentially coming in from Frank Esports right there. And we are going to take another look at the fight. This was not a base race that Camille was going to win, so I would say Frank Esports do get the lead right off the bat, taking down Lee Sin and also forcing Camille. You can see Quiet can't really find Eminem. Faith going down very low. And unfortunately, I felt like they could have played this a little bit safer, but somehow Blaze is down.
What just happened? Everybody was dead right there for a second. Okay, I'm gonna play CSI Summoner's Rift here for a second, Clement. Looking at the dead bodies, I think Blaze and Krellick tried to contest on Dragon, and the motive I have absolutely no idea. But they're going to go back in one more time. We don't have any time to try and make any moves on this one. Pretender going to go golden here as Quiet was tracking him. Do they have the damage? Holo once again in the Crescent Guard. What a massive, massive Xin Zhao he is. And Faith and Quiet just can't find the priority targets. He tries, but stunned up through the gravity field. Meanwhile, Faith getting chased away by Kurt in this one. You got to hand it to Impunity. They try and try and try again. But Frank Esports, the new kids on the block, are just too powerful.
Yeah, Impunity try to get the 4v4 before Aphelios can join the fight, but Frankie, they just hold their ground. They have the Ocean Soul from the previous fight right there. We don't really know what happened exactly in the critical team fight, but they definitely have prevailed, and it looks like they're about to close down this game.
Taking down Krellick. You can see Kurt got caught, but he was able to pop himself into stasis. Quiet, meanwhile, likewise going to get blown up. The last of the Nexus turrets have fallen, and with all 5 members of Frank Esports, they're looking for their first win in their debut as a team, and they will be able to secure it 36 minutes in, and they do it in style.
So, a very abrupt end to what was a back-and-forth game that we saw there. Impunity, they tried to take the Ocean Drake while Eminem was dead and still respawning on the fountain, but somehow, someway, Frank Esports were able to kill the mid. We're actually not, the mid was already dead. Faith was already dead at that point, but they were able to kill Blaze somehow and then secure the Ocean Soul to sort of finish off the game. Congratulations to Frank Esports, a well-deserved win. A little bit uncertain how events actually lined up, but they made it happen.
Yeah, it definitely was a game that had a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos at times, and you could see that where one team had a bit of an edge, the other team would be able to take advantage of. A lot of unforced errors on the Impunity side from an individual standpoint. Let's take a look at how that critical fight unfolded. Yeah, it seems like Blaze and Krellick, they had no idea that Holo and Pretender were here.
Oh, that's just the experience coming in once again.
Yeah, the War
Death
Rush.
I think that was placed as Krellix was coming close to that rush. I don't think it was there
okay.
at the start of the fight.
I was about to say unforgivable, but yeah, that's that kind of sealed the deal here. You could see Quiet. I mean, he's trying so hard, and then Pretender's just like, psych.
That was a very half-hearted attempt from Impunity. They still had wave-clearing members in their own base. So Frank Esports were very happy to take that 2v2. You could see Pretender actually starts that fight by just flashing in on Blaze, and there was nothing he could do right there. So I think, you know, years on the PSG bench does teach you about those situations and how to play those scenarios out, a very opportunistic chance from Impunity. But I do want to look at the bigger picture for Impunity. We do have to set the expectations correctly for this team. They were the 9th place team coming in summer from 2020. Again, about their season, they just had a very bad early game and not enough team cohesion to kind of pull through. But in this match, I'm actually pretty happy about Impunity's performance. This is, again, the first day of the PCS. I felt like most of their mistakes were completely individual mistakes. You saw, the Kralix turn back, the Faith overchase, and then the Taco just kind of weird red steal that gave over the Baron. If you take those 3 things away from the game and you look at their draft and you look at their side lane potential that they enjoyed throughout the majority of it, I would actually venture to say that they were winning on the map for the most part of this game. They just kind of threw in inopportune moments.
Yeah, it's an interesting way the game unfolded too, right? Like there were times when it seemed like Impunity were like playing very, very cleanly, and then they would just make a bit of a head scratcher play by an individual. Sometimes they would try to take advantage of the turn by Frank Esports, and you could see that Baron attempt. I almost wonder what would have happened had they stayed on the Baron, tried to push them back rather than turning for the fight. Yeah. Also, like sometimes the the team decision making from Frank Esports was a little bit lackluster, and it turned on the fact that they just had like really significant tools to work with. Every single time Holo was able to pop on the Crescent Guard, it was kind of like, oh, well, I guess you can't really do a whole lot in this situation. I did really like what this team brought out in their first game on the split and their first game as a team here in the PCS. So Frank Esports, getting a well-deserved win. It was very back and forth. It was definitely not clean. It was kind of a bare-knuckle brawl between these two at times. And I think, that kind of excitement, we see what these new teams in the PCS can bring, and even some of the old teams that are bringing new faces as well. I do think at a lot of levels there is, honestly, it can be anyone's rankings going forward.
It definitely feels that way. I would say that this game was very clean for PCS standards, but unfortunately the mistakes sort of defined how the flow of the game actually went. So that's the way I would characterize it. I think both of these teams actually demonstrated a very high level of coordination and sort of telepathy on where the enemy team was going to be, especially from Frank Esports. The early game was very well played. They were able to sort of dismantle all the offensive attempts from Impunity. The 4v2s we saw multiple times onto Eminem. None of them really worked out. But unfortunately, it was those sort of catches that did put Frank Esports into a position where they could then control the map. I feel like they were actually playing from the back foot a large portion of this game, with Kurt just, he was kind of on sandbag duty and didn't have much impact.
Yeah, Taco on the other hand, I mean, Taco giveth, Taco taketh for sure, but the one who taketh the MVP award is going to be Pretender. So straight from the bench of PSG Talon and into the MVP standings on his Victor. Certainly a lot of impactful and really reactive performance, but it worked out well. Was there for about 9 out of every 10 kills, and certainly did a fair share of damage for himself, and definitely well earned there.
And I do want to mention that even though we have said Pretender has been on the bench for quite a long time, he's still only 20 years old. So he still has a lot of game time ahead of him to showcase what he actually has and maybe one day go back onto the PSG roster. So, so far so good from Frank Esports. We do get, I think our guesses were relatively accurate on how this team is going to play. They're going to play towards their veteran bot lane. As we have mentioned, Pretender is more of a mage player, so we should expect sort of a slower pace, more team fight centric composition coming from them, and that's exactly what we got.
Absolutely. Well, then we are halfway through the day, so we are going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we return, Meta Falcon team taking on the likes of Hurricane. We'll see you soon.